Everybody having a good Independence Day weekend?
Yes.
Pretty cool, huh?
Excellent.
Very nice. Very nice. It's good to be home. I have a couple of things that I want to talk about before I get into the next slide. I want to talk about what happened to me July of 1988. In July of 1988, Barbara and her then husband Tony Bonacorso had left the Miami church, and I was the administrator. I was kind of in charge. We had an interim minister come in. His name was Bill Hart. Bill was a wonderful teacher, and I had an allegiance to Tony and Barbara, and it was a little hard for me to be in the midst of this other experience when all I really had known was Tony and Barbara. And I was kind of in charge of a lot of stuff, so I had to hide those feelings. But what I would do consistently on Sunday morning is I would be on the platform and I would do my part, and then I would sit down kind of on the side, and somewhere during the celebration I would slip out. See, we had served breakfast after our Sunday celebration. Every Sunday, we had a couple of guys in the kitchen that ran that. One was a Watergate burglar, the other was a bounty hunter. and they, so, it was Miami, exactly. Bada bing, bada boom. So, after I did that 3 or 4 weeks in a row, Bill asked me to come into his office one day. And what he said to me was, you getting up and leaving in the middle of the celebration, or any time during the celebration, is a distraction. You know, you're one of the leaders here, and you're slipping out, and you're giving everybody else a signal that it's okay for them to do that. And it's really not working. And he said, besides that, it's hurting my feelings. Wow. Yes, I was embarrassed, but the lesson was so powerful in my life. And I am so committed to spiritual community. This is the high point of our week. Many of you come here during the week. We have many activities. They're all wonderful. This is it for us when we come together. And on first Sundays, we have this wonderful luncheon that we put together. And many of you bring food, and it's just this wonderful connection. And every time when we finish the peace song and I open those doors out there and look into the social hall, it's got a bunch of people over there. They're not part of this. And what I realized was, every time it happens, I go, I've never done anything about it. And I realize I need to ask you to stay. Because this is where you get fed. The food's great. This is where you get fed. I know 99% of you don't go over there. But those of you that do, it's not about my feelings. It's about you. I want you here with us while we do this. So I've said that. Thank you. Tomorrow night we begin our Summer Prosperity, and for the first time we're teaching from a book by Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich. It's a powerful book. One of the best sellers of all times. And you're getting a little ahead of me here, Deborah. Thank you. Think and grow. Keep look back. There you go. Keep there for. I'll guide you through this, okay? Think and Grow Rich. And here's your homework assignment if you're planning on attending, if you want to. Think and Grow Rich is on our website, correct? Yes, thank you. Okay. It's on our website. Here's the reading assignment for tomorrow night's class, chapter 15. Chapter 15. So if you want to be ahead of the game tomorrow night, read chapter 15. Now, beyond that, we're going to do a firewalk. And it's all going to fit together perfectly. And the firewalk is something, let me tell you my little story of firewalking. I showed up at the Miami Center for Positive Living about 2 weeks after they did a firewalk. So all I heard when I showed up there, wow, they had this firewalk, it was amazing, wow, all these things happened. I want to do a firewalk, but I never did. It never happened there. So then we left that church. We eventually moved here. We joined the Unity Church in Arden. There was no firewalk going on, but at some point I had someone said to me that they had facilitated firewalks, and I was doing men's gatherings up at Moonsong in I don't know where that place is called, Leicester. And you know they pronounce it Leicester even in England? Nobody knows how to pronounce that word. So we used to go up there, and this guy led us through a firewalk. It was the most non-traditional firewalk I've ever been because it was round, and we stood in a circle, and just from wherever we were, I'm surprised two people didn't pound into each other in the middle of that thing. It was crazy, but we did it. And everybody survived. It was quite an amazing experience. So I was passionately involved in this idea of firewalking now. So I started looking for other people to lead it. We did it here. And the first time we did it here, we had someone who said that she knew what she was doing, and she didn't. But she did whatever she did, and somebody got severely burned. Now, it wasn't somebody that was in the workshop with us. It was someone who just showed up and sat out there at the fire. She and a friend came, and they both got up. One of them said, I'm going to do this, and went across and was fine. The other one said, I'm going to regret it if I don't do this. And she went across and screamed at me that she was burned, and she went to the hospital with severe burns. And so that told me this was real, and that somebody really could get hurt out there, that we better know what we're doing. So I said, I'm going to go get trained. And I researched it, and sure enough, in California, the guy who's considered the father of American firewalking, Tolliver Ken, was doing a facilitator's training. So I headed off to Northern California and drove out to this, I don't remember the name of the town, but it was right where the California Gold Rush was centered in Northern California, and we did 4 days of firewalk training. This is Tolliver Ken. You already saw him a moment ago. There we go. That's Tolly in the middle there. That's his book called Extreme Spirituality, if you're wondering where I got the title of my talk today. And that book is really about all the kinds of things that are involved in this thing called extreme spirituality. And the foreword to that book was written by the gentleman on the far lower right there, Andrew Weil. Okay, Andrew Weil, W-E-I-L, known, that's the cover of Time magazine where he was. He wrote the foreword and made some really good points about firewalking. If you're interested in that book at all, there's a couple copies in the bookstore this morning. I have the third copy here, which I might donate to the bookstore as well. But for right now, we're just going to let that be up here in case I need it. So, firewalking. We did 4 days worth of firewalking. Let me explain something, though, so we're real clear about this idea of extreme spirituality. The name of this center is Center for Spiritual Living. How many of you know people that do not live spiritually? No, you don't. It's impossible. Everything is spirit. Everything is spirit. So spiritual living is an absolute has to be. None of us are non-spiritual. Now, what we may be is unaware of our spirituality. So yeah, see the difference? There's a distinction here. Okay? I am not more spiritual than someone else. I am exactly the same spiritually as everyone else. I'm spirit, they're spirit. It's all spirit. You can't get away from that. But you can be more aware of it. And that's what we seek to do as community, is to be more aware of our spiritual nature, our essence, to understand that and to use that awareness in who we are. So extreme spirituality. That also makes no sense. However, you can become more aware through these kinds of radical experiences that he talks about in this book. I won't explain some of those, because when I went there for those 4 days, it wasn't all firewalking. We talked about firewalking, we talked about all the details of firewalking, we talked about the consent forms and the release forms and about lawyers, and we talked about the kind of wood to use, and we talked about everything else. And we built fires and we walked on them every day. Great. But that doesn't take up 4 days. So we had to do these other things. And I wanted to share some of those with you this morning to give you a sense of the kinds of things that are out there that people use to be more spiritually aware. One of them is called steel bending. It's using rebar and bending it with your throat, like this guy. Nope, that's me at a firewalk. We'll get back to that, but that's fine. Like that. Can you see that? It's not a great picture, and I knew it wouldn't show up great on here, but that right there is a piece of steel that has been bent, and that's the guy's throat right there. The other guy's holding it in his hand, but this guy's actually using his throat right there, bent steel. Amazing. The next one's another picture of two women doing it. at a firework. You ever seen such a thing? That's crazy. That's steel. Yet apparently, putting it on your throat and then stepping toward another person who has it on their throat, it'll bend before it'll tear through your skin. Good to know. And as though this was not weird enough, then he pulls out arrows. You know, archer's arrows that have a point on them. You know, quills on the backside, but point on the front. And then you get into this kind of craziness. On the neck, there it comes. That is an arrow into that guy's throat right there. There's another one over here. Holy moly is right. Now, those are meant to pierce, right? You got a point on them. It's not that it's like razor sharp, but it's a point. So what's the point? A point is that if you push into that with enough force, it will snap the arrow in half before it will cut through your skin. The trick is, how do you get yourself to where you can check and see if that's correct? How many people do you have to see do it before you're willing to try it? Well, he wouldn't let any of us see any of this. He gave us all an arrow and said, go to the wall and put it up there and walk into it until it snaps. Huh? That was a little freaky. And it was interesting because we did it with a partner. And the partner that I had apparently had been abused early in her life and with a knife being held to her throat. And she had to overcome that fear to do this exercise. It was quite amazing. It took us a while. But we both did it. In fact, everybody in the room did. It was quite amazing. Yeah, you all know what this is. It's called board breaking, right? Board breaking. My favorite story about board breaking was when... No, you're done, Deborah. Don't move till I tell you, okay? Thank you. Bad girl. Guess that's not going to be much of a joke, is it? Okay, you're not bad. There's nothing bad about trying to do you. Okay, here we go. Board breaking. We do that here from time to time. We're crazy enough to let that be one of our extreme spirituality activities. But I was asked to bring that to our entire movement out at Asheville. We had 700 people out there the year that I did it. About 500 of them were in the room in the big Merrill Hall when we were doing this exercise, and I was in charge. And that was a big group of people, but we did it. We went through it. I trained a bunch of people to hold the boards, how to do it correctly, and we broke, after the workshop, we all broke into these circles, and everybody did their board breaking, and there were a handful of people that weren't able to do it with the person I had trained, and the rule was 3 times max, and the 3rd time you allow you bring that person to me, and then we're going to do it as a whole group. And the way we do it, of course, is the circle is chanting your name, your name, your name, your name, and everybody's focused on you and giving you all this energy, and you just break this board, right? Not everybody did. The people that didn't came to me. I worked through with them. One woman just couldn't break the board. And when it was all over, she told me that she was having a terrible time with issues of breaking through in her life. So she wasn't willing to solve that at that moment. She was still in that process. She wasn't wrong. She wasn't bad. She just wasn't ready. So she did not break the board. So it was good to know for everybody to see that this is not a given, that everybody does it. Now, the person after her, I've got this woman I've got to send away. She can't break the board. And I have one more little waify woman, little tiny thing. Her name is Willa Barber Johnson. She was a practitioner at the time. And she came up, and she was crying, and her hand was blood red. She'd been banging on that board. In fact, they didn't keep it at 3. She did about 7 tries before they brought her to me. Her hand was hurting. She did not want to do this. But she wasn't willing to walk away either. So I said, okay. And I held the board for her. And she wailed back and hit that thing, and it did not break. And everyone's going, Willa, Willa. And there were a few, oh, and I, no, you keep going. They got, Willa, Willa. And I grabbed her by the shoulders, and I brought her into me. And I said, Willa, my reputation is on the line. Will you break this damn board? And she looked at me. split that thing in half so hard. All she needed was a good enough reason to break the board. Her all that writing all over the board didn't do it. But when she thought she was embarrassing me, she was glad to break that thing. And it just splintered. It was wonderful. And as you already have figured out, we also, at this thing with Tolly, did brick breaking. This was one of our participants. And now, there it is. Brings all the meaning to don't be a baby. Yeah, so no, that's not the real one. The real one's the next slide. There you go. So we broke bricks. How do we do it? Intention. We set our intention and we broke through the bricks. We did some other pretty weird stuff, so if you're squeamish, you might want to look away for the next couple of slides. On this one, we walked on shards of broken glass. Now, the difference between walking on shards of broken glass and walking on fire is that you walk on fire quickly. You walk on shards of broken glass slowly, placing your foot with great intention at each step. But you know what? Those of us that did it, no one bled. I have no idea how that works. But those shards of glass were very sharp. That we did. And then the one everybody freaks out about, we stuck 9-inch knitting needles through our hands. That's crazy. Yeah, but that's just an example of how that works. And it was not a 5-inch knitting needle is what it was. Let's not exaggerate here, John. Tolly Burkan said he tried this several times and never could do it. The time that he actually pierced his skin, he immediately started vomiting. So he never actually did it. But the idea is that you push it through your hand and pull it out the other side. Yeah, I know what he's going to do. Why would you do such a thing? Well, for one, to show that you can. Now, what's interesting about it was I did it. We had, I think there were maybe 19 participants in this class. The first one that got it done was the martial artist. He pushed it in and pulled it down and said, "Okay, now what?" There were only 3 or 4 that couldn't do it. One of them was a surgeon. He couldn't do it. But I did it. I think I had mine done second. And I just really got into a state and pushed that thing through and pulled it out the other side. Not any sign of blood. No blood. And on my skin, just the tiniest little red dot. And what I did was I created an agreement with every cell in my body that I could do this and push this thing through. So the cells just kind of released. And then when I was done, they went back together. It was not painful. It was odd, but it was not painful. Okay, so we can get rid of that picture. Here's the other weird thing that we did. Holly gave us an assignment one night and said we had to go to the local Indian casino. No, this was a very spiritual experience. He said you can turn this casino into a sanctuary. He said, turn it into a sanctuary. Go in there with only $20. And he wanted us to use particular machines in there. Now, like this one. See the guys putting a coin in? They don't have many of those anymore. But they did have 2 rows of coin-operated slot machines. He said, go to those machines and find one that you resonate with. It's a machine. But he wanted us to resonate with it and have this connection to it. We could sing to it. We could pray with it. We do whatever we want, but we were aligned in consciousness with a slot machine. Yeah. Also, he said, put all of your quarters, $20 worth, that's what, 80 quarters, in a plastic cup, and have another plastic cup, so that if you win anything, it goes in a different cup. And when this cup's empty, you're done. Not bad. Okay. So I went there, and there were 19 people and 2 rows of machines. It was like there weren't enough machines for all of us who were waiting. And like, what, you're supposed to create a relationship with this machine? You're going to grab the first one you can. And I'm doing this and put in a few, made a little bit, you know, put a few quarters in. And I'm going, this just isn't working for me. So I got up and I started wandering around this casino. And I ended up in one of the corners of the casino, really, a corner. And they have the machines right up to the edge of the building. And so there's a woman sitting there at a machine, and there's an empty machine. And I'm watching her. This is not a coin-operated machine. It's the one with the tickets or whatever you do. And she's playing, and I'm kind of watching her play so I get a sense, because I had never been in a casino before. My thought was anyone that goes to a casino has absolutely too much money. And they're going to give some to the folks that own the casino. So that was not my thing. This was a first for me. But I watched the woman, and she would press the big red button and do whatever she did, and you know, whatever would happen. And I just kind of watched her for a few minutes. And then I sat down in that stool next to her. Now, mind you, all I have is a thing of quarters. I have no way to play this machine. But I pushed the big red button, and it paid $48. Now, that's not spiritual. I was done. Yes, you're right. I went and cashed out immediately and left that place. And then, of course, we did firewalking, which was the point of being there. And it was an extraordinary experience to learn how to do this, to see that fire. And I don't know if you can tell from this. This was from last year here. We've done lots of firewalks. I've done them here in Asheville. We've had ministers come in, practitioners come in. We've done special ones. I've gotten pretty comfortable with this, but this was different for me. I don't know if you can tell, but that's my head right there. And my body is somewhere in that. And these couple of people behind me, you can see them. Kind of through me. How did that happen? I have no idea. I don't understand it. It makes no sense to me, but that was in preparing for the fire. That was working that fire, creating a relationship with that fire, which to me is a very living thing. And the next slide is a picture of me walking that night, walking across the fire. That's me. And as you can see, yeah, you can see right through me in the picture. I have no idea. Barbara's actually over here somewhere to receive me on the other end of that fire. But I learned how to do that. And if any of you want to experience it, come tomorrow night and see what you can learn. I don't care if you walk. It's not important. What's important is that you see beyond your reality, that you experience something greater than you know right now. I've had other things like this happen in my life. I went into a thing back in Miami with a guy named Reverend Willard Fuller and walked out with fillings in my mouth that had not been there moments earlier. I watched other people's teeth move. I watched all these changes happen in people's lives. The thing is that in this movement, we say anything is possible, but we don't live like it. We're not open to that possibility of something beyond our reality. We stay so firmly in the limited reality of who we think we are. And one thing I want you to know is that all of these things that I've just shared with you are contrived. Every one of them is made up. They're planned. They're organized for an experience that challenges your reality. But they're really no difference, especially at the level of the subjective, from everything else that's going on in your life. The thing to learn from a fire walk or a board breaking or a spoon bending or anything of the sort is to challenge your reality that maybe there's more going on than you're acting like there is. Maybe there's something bigger. Maybe there's something more that you can do to create the life that you want. Maybe so. So what we do is we come together in spiritual community in a way to actually look at this. The word contrived is so interesting because some of its synonyms are fake, manufactured. But the truth is that if we were to talk about what's real, you can't see anything that's real. Everything that you see is manufactured. Everything that you experience in life is made up. All of it. I once said that to one of my classes at UNC Asheville. I told a group of people, of students, that psychology was made up, and they were so shocked. Well, of course it's made up. Everything's made up. Everything. Through our consciousness, everything is made up. Without exception. We buy it. We think it's so. Guess what? It gets to be so. Which means that the bottom line of everything in your life is that consciousness is everything. Consciousness is everything. Change the slide. Consciousness is everything. Would you please say that with me? Consciousness is everything. Nothing happens outside of consciousness. Consciousness and God are the same thing. And if you think it's so, it's so. Maybe just for a moment. But if you think it's so, you make it so. Yes, it requires that the law activate and reflect back to you. That's the way the universe is organized. Is that you have a thought, you have an emotion, you tie those things together, and the law reflects that back to you in some form. In a relationship, in a condition, in an object, whatever it is. That's how it works, but it all starts with you. The law does nothing without you activating it. You're in charge of your life. So I ask you this morning, yep, still morning. I ask you this morning, what is it in your life that's not working for you? Whatever is not working for you is a reflection of your consciousness as much as everything that is working for you. We don't spend a lot of time here talking about what is working for you. But it's all made by the same method, the same process. The same thing makes the things you love and the things you don't love. The question is, why are you creating the things you don't love? It's time to stop that. So what do? We put this monstrous fire out in front of you and invite you to walk through it. Because if you can walk on fire, you can do anything. But guess what? Even if you choose not to walk on fire, you can still do anything. The question is, do you know that? Are you willing to accept that? Are you willing to know that consciousness is everything? And the thoughts and feelings that you are putting into life are the things that are driving your experience, without exception. I was at a minister's gathering a few weeks ago. It wasn't a ministry, they called it an intensive. And it was a group of people who were becoming ministers. And they each gave a 5-minute talk, and they were given a topic, and they had to immediately take that topic and then speak about it. And one of them got up and said, "No, I don't really believe that I create everything in my life." The question was, do you create everything in your life? And I don't really think that I do. There's too many possibilities here of how it's all organized. So I don't really believe that. And the ministers in the room, we looked at each other and said, "Oh, he's going to have a hard time passing his panel to getting a license right now." In fact, in his panel, it was said to him, "You may well be a minister, but probably not in this movement." Because, yes, you create everything in your life, without exception. You are the creator. You are the driver. You are in charge. The God that is you. And it's the same creative force that created everything in the cosmos. There's no difference. It's just that you don't have to mess with the big stuff. You're focused on your life. You're focused on what you see, what you experience, what is important to you. That's your work. So what are your limitations? You can't really know until you know. So why not come and look at a hot fire tomorrow night and think about what that means? I'll give you one other thing to think about before I close here, and that is that we call this our summer prosperity class, and if you're going, I'm good with prosperity, there's still something there for you. This is not about having more money. It's about knowing who you are. That's the point. And to demonstrate that, I bring you a celebrity. Jim Carrey, who said, "I wish everyone could get rich and famous and have everything they ever dreamed of so they would know that that's not the answer." Think about that. We're all looking for something or we wouldn't be in this room. I invite you to receive it, to have it all right here, right now. I love you. God bless you.
Thank you.